Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us at First Call Restoration. I'm Janice, and I'm going to be doing part two of water damage and the initial visit. In part one, I kind of went over what the process was that we go through to develop a drying plan. Because as so many people, when they call, think we're just going to come in, we're going to suck some water out, and on our way we go. And so I kind of gave you a feel for what are we really doing when we first arrive, and how we really look at so many different factors to develop this drying plan. So now that we have this drying plan from part one, we're up to part two for water damage. Part two is really when we have that plan, that drying plan, and now we're going to get in there and we're going to start taking out any of the wet material. Once when we have all that wet material out, now we can actually start drying the structure. And that's what people usually, when they're like drying, okay, we're finally up to equipment. And that's exactly the point that we're at this spot. So we're going to start putting in equipment. Things that you're going to see are things like air movers, and there are different styles. There are a dehue. You'll always see a dehue also on the job. And usually you'll see a negative air. It's called an air filtration device, fancy word for basically it's an air scrubber or negative air. We can use that one machine in two different ways. We can vent it out, and that's the way you'll always see it for a mold job, where we're actually venting the air that it's taking in. It's cleaning, it's going through several different filters, HEPA filters, and then we vent it out a window so that anything that's in that air, again, gets vented out. Sometimes we use it as a negative air, an air scrubber, excuse me. Air scrubber is just that. It's scrubbing the air, it's removing contaminants. So those are the three things you usually see out on a job when it's water. So what exactly does all this equipment do? We have air movers, and air movers are just that. They are pushing air towards the water. I tell everyone, we have something I'll actually sign off on. Please don't move them. Don't move them away from the area that we set it, and also don't move the angle. Believe it or not, the angle that an air mover sits on has a lot to do with what we're trying to dry. The more we move that angle, we don't angle it as much, and we move it out away from the wall, we're going down the wall. So when you see it angled usually on a 45-degree angle, it's going to that water, but going up the wall a bit too. So that's our first piece of equipment that's critical. That air circulation is a definite critical part of drying. You'll also see, again, that dehumidifier. That dehumidifier is doing what a dehue does, only on a much more demanding, grander scale because it's commercial. So we're removing that relative humidity, all that humidity that's in the air that's going to stop us from drying rapidly. It's taking that air, it's drying it out, it's pulling that humidity and moisture out of the air. So again, simple evaporation can occur. Now, all that wet building material now has a place to release the moisture so that we can start drying. It's all that basic science we got in school. And then, like I said, we have the negative air. The air filtration device is now what it's really being called. And that's going to remove any contaminants, whether we've kicked up dust or any kind of building material dust, just natural dust in the air. We're taking that out, or anything that we may have disturbed, and we're keeping the air as clean as possible. So those are the basic pieces of equipment that you're going to see if you have any kind of a water loss. And yes, I have to say they are noisy. They are quite annoying. But remember, it's only for a few days, and I'd rather have some noisy equipment than have mold in my house, because we're not drying out quick enough, and we're not reducing that relative humidity so that we don't have any kind of secondary damage, which occurs from high moisture. So I know it's a pain. I've had it in our own home, Mike and I know it's annoying, but you'll get through it for a few days, I promise you. So the last step that we really have in the drying process is the monitoring. So we have all this equipment in. Now we have to make sure that it's doing its job correctly and as quick as possible, because we always want to dry as quickly as possible. So we will be calling you every day and making appointments that we can come in. We take readings. So the things that we took readings from our initial visit, we want to make sure that we're seeing the drying process continue. So if we have a reading of, say 25, we want to make sure that by the next day we're seeing a drop in that number, the following day even more of a drop in that number, so that we can get to the drying goals that were set. And the drying goals, again, are just coming from an unaffected room, so we know what your drying goal is for that particular home. Everyone can be a little different. You may have a lot of trees around your home, so your house is going to possibly hold a little bit more moisture. So anyway, that's for part 2. Like I said, the monitoring will be the last step. If you ever have any questions, never hesitate to give us a call. We're very well versed in water, fire, smoke, mold remediation. Mike is a mold hygienist. So if there's ever anything that we cannot answer here on staff, any one of us on staff, we definitely can get you an answer. So I thank you so much for joining us, and please look for the other videos. They are very informational. Thank you so much, and have a great day.